This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Currently, you can get free delivery on all orders over £40 and 10% of all online orders by using our code of TakesThatChance10.
Jepson's there, Billy in, a goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Bullshit.
Welcome to episode 101 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. Yet again, a double game week, and yet again, a podcast tinged with some sort of misery. This past week, poor old Pontus Jansson claimed he'd had 2 fights with Huddersfield Town fans. Let's hope for his own safety that he ran a mile like in 2017 when confronted by a teenage Izzy Brown and a 5'7" Elias Kachunga, or when he's set to appear in a big game. But seriously, if true, not cool. But at least the Town fans seem to have some fight in them, because the team certainly didn't last night as we crashed to our heaviest defeat in 34 years since the 10-1 at Main Road. Whereas last night, Lee Hendry took on the overbearing role of Snow White. 4 of the 7 dwarfs have turned up for this podcast to masochistically rake through the ashes of what, quite frankly, was a complete shit show. Today, we've got Grumpy, Apathetic, Anger, and Kosi. I'm referring to, of course, myself, Matt, Simon, and Kosi. There we are. So good evening, everyone, and how we doing? And good evening to everybody online who's joined us to for this punishment.
B team were 2-0 up. I'm all about positives, mate. Everyone else did this.
They got 3, mate. They were 3 at one point.
4-0.
Kit Elliott got a hat trick, didn't he? But,
yeah, you're only as good as your last game. The B team is where it's at, boys.
Might go watch them instead. Okay, let's get this. Let's get last night out of the way. It was 90 minutes that turned me into the Scottish mum. No one flushed the toilet meme. You know.
I'm going to sing Cher Lloyd by Cher Lloyd or Rebecca G. Right? And don't forget all the trouble we got into.
Why does somebody not know how to flush a toilet after they've had a shit?
What do you mean?
Well, it was fucking one of yous. Disgusting!
Disgusting. For 90 minutes, I was just over and over just saying that. It was a bad time. So Norwich City 7, Huddersfield Town 0. There's no way really to describe this other than a complete disgrace, to be honest, start to finish. The team selection I thought was poor from Carlos. I felt like this was a bit like Bournemouth, where he went in with an already defeated attitude, if you like, and the selection kind of mirrored that a little bit. I don't know how many times Lewis O'Brien has to struggle at left wing back before Carlos realizes it's a bit of a bad idea. And hopefully it's not ruined Lewis O'Brien's recent momentum, because he's been excellent lately, to be fair to Lewis. To ask the team to press high up the pitch and go man for man, exposing the slowness of Stearman and Keogh at the back, was what you would potentially call football suicide. And if any particular analyst has highlighted that as a weakness of Norwich, then they maybe need to be analysed themselves. Yes, especially with so many passive players as well in the side. Then to not change that till we were 5-0 down was completely incredible. The only bright spot really for me was that of Sorba Thomas. He came on and had a bit of a go. And Scott High did quite well as well. But there's no doubt in my mind that we turned up, knew we were going to get beat and intended on a bit of damage limitation, but tactically royally messed up. I'll throw that over to you, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, where to start? Embarrassing is the first word that comes to my mind. Just embarrassing. Tactically, is naive the right word? I mean, naive at best, but kind of I think your point around them not changing it is a very valid one. We just kind of exposed all our weaknesses, and everything arguably we've done, perhaps in the last few weeks, kind of been more defensively secure, disciplined. Just felt like it went completely out the window, and still haven't quite got my head around it, in truth.
Shell-shocked. Kosi.
Yeah, mate. One thing I remembered was Friday. I remember having Jeff Stelling on, and Preston got a goal in the 95th minute, Good Friday, after Norwich had absolutely battered them. And I remember seeing a few quotes from Daniel Farke, and they were absolutely spewing it like they'd been mugged. And I just thought, I wonder who they've got next, Huddersfield Town. And part of me wondered whether they would use us to kind of take out their anger on us. And to be honest, Matt, I think similar to you, mate, the Bournemouth kind of fiasco, it just ekes it out. But another one, 7, you saw that team sheet. D'Amico, Delaney again in the team. And I'm just thinking, wow, we're in trouble here. But it was quite funny, Pos, because you said 8-0. Once you did the goalkeeping change in that as well. And now you were in the end, which were quite ironic. But I think it's like anything, innit? I think you can cope with your defeat. I remember going to the Barnsley defeat when Darren Barnard scored that absolute worldie. We had that cream kit on. I remember being that way in, but I didn't feel any of the anger that night, even though I knew a lot of Barnsley fans, because I felt like we put in shift then, because we had good characters then, Andy Morrison and the like playing.
6-0 at half time, that boy.
Yeah, it was bad, wasn't it? But last night, his back three were like average age about 30 plus, all this stuff about experience, and that, I think that's what kind of Lee Hendry just kept going on about in the experience backline.
He was painful. He was painful last night.
Exposed, and that's the word. And I just looked at, I was thinking, these players here, why is Carlos playing players who are blatantly not going to be here next year? And Benza, to me, looks like he's packed up the last 2 months. Zero interest. Okay, he was
back to 2018 levels, wasn't he, yesterday? And
chasing shadows, I get, but the penalty summed it up. But yeah, I've kind of rattled on a bit, Matt, but it hurts. And I know Neil won't mind saying, Neil said it doesn't kind of hurt anymore for him. He's kind of beyond that, but it hurts me. And then today, kind of my friends I'm seeing, they're like taking the piss, and I don't like that. Yeah, it's Norwich and stuff, but we were saying stuff like, that wheelie bin, that's as good as your team. It hurts me when Huddersfield Town as bad as that on a national platform. That hurts, man.
I was going to say, because it's a good job we didn't do that on Sky Sports main event or anything silly like that. Like we did back when we played Barnsley as well. That was another one live in front of the cameras.
Because makes a good point there. I think we're all big enough, mature enough to accept a defeat, to accept sometimes that, particularly where we're at right now, we're not always going to be the best side. But you want your teams to kind of put some effort in and put a performance in, get close to the man, put a few tackles in, put themselves about. And the way we just stood off at times last night, and almost the apathy of the squad, the kind of just the acceptance of what was happening around them, that's what really hurt for me, that no one really kind of said, I'm going to try and stop this. And it was just kind of a free-for-all. Let's be honest, it was 7-0, but it could easily have been 8, 9, 10.
I were happy. If you'd offered me 7-0 at half-time, I'd have took it. And, as much malign keeper, he kept it at that. But you made a good point last night, and I went with it on Radio Leeds. To me, what were utter sadness,
stealing
of Bakuna have that armband on at the end. I just thought, that's pitiful. That is where Huddersfield Town are at the moment. We're a guy, we don't give a shit. He just does what he wants. Okay, he's putting some good performance up to you, but he does what he wants. He's not a team man. He'll be off next season. And this is the guy with his armband on at Carrow Road once all goes. I just thought, that's just where we are, just a muddled mess, man.
I'd love to be able to stick up for Bakuna there, but I can't. Unless, last night's show, and I think he's improved a lot since the new year. I thought he was very poor up till the new year. And as we've got worse, he's kind of got better. But yeah, captain.
Guys that ain't going to be in the pitch next season. I know you say, who else can you pick? But Wayne ain't going to be there.
Well, he is, potentially.
Really?
I think they'll keep him.
There's so many players there. I don't think they'll be involved next season. It's
no, but who else? Like I say, who else are you going to pick? There's Aaron Rowe probably should have played left wing back in hindsight, and Lewis O'Brien in the middle. But you could argue that Lewis O'Brien might not be there next year. There's teams circling for him. So do you stop picking Lewis O'Brien because he might get a transfer? We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. I certainly don't at this moment in time. Joel Pereira's not going to be there next year. Wasn't even our worst player last night, despite the reputation. I think that really hurts. But you look at the Examiner ratings, and Joel Pereira was second in the man of the match, and that summed up the performance really. And I think what summed it up as well was the performance of Sorba Thomas. Someone who actually had a point to prove and wanted to get involved. And I kind of want to focus on him a little bit because there's not many positives in that game. Well, there's no positives really in that game apart from his introduction, really. And I thought he was a positive light. And we've got Leo says, why haven't we seen more of Thomas? I would give him a start against Rotherham. Dan Peckett said, had such a bad dream last night. Night sweats and everything. Too much cheese and meat, Dan. Andy M says, waiting for the silent assassin Kosi to kick in. Not really assassinated anyone there, Cos. I thought you were quite fair.
No, mate, I'm 46 now, man. I'm a two more. I'm an analyst and I'm a considered analyst. Matt, though, what I don't get is Sorba Thomas. Sorba Thomas come on as a sub in another game where I think we're getting beat again. And he looked quite, he gave us 20 minutes. The thing is, we said it before at Borough, who was it that came on and gave us a good 20 minutes? And, when you're getting absolutely battered, you can't, it's easy to look good, but his spirit was, it was just nice to see someone with a bit of spirit and a bit of...
Someone who gave a shit, basically. Because rightly or wrongly, you just felt like the team lolloped. They essentially lolloped and got walloped, didn't they? I think that I might call the episode that. But, they just kind of really sort of care. It just, as fans, it hurts to watch players lollop around on the pitch like that. And Danny Ward's obviously not fit. Danny Ward struggled badly sort of with Norwich's movement. And to be fair, you've got to give Norwich a lot of credit as well. Norwich were fantastic on the day. They're probably the best side I've seen at this level since we got promoted, and Newcastle and Brighton were decent. I'll give them that. I thought they were excellent, and they could very well end up with points into the 90s, close to 100. But this league is poor, and we're poor as well.
Matt, we've just drawn with Brentford.
Yeah, and they drew with Birmingham last night, so I don't know what that says either. At home, I think Brentford are on their annual end of season drop off, aren't they?
I think the thing is that 5 unbeaten, it's a bit of a crack paper job, though. That isn't it, really, for being honest.
Well, like what we were saying before we went live, you can say 5 unbeaten before, but 2 wins in 18. It's different ways to splice. Different ways to splice statistics, really. And we've only scored 2 goals in. We've only scored more than 1 goal in 2 games in the last 15, which again isn't great. And one of those we lost, against Wickham. So there's, since Carlos signed his new contract, we've only won 3 out of 20. And there are, and we talking about a mate, with Matty Dirks about it, pause earlier, and he was saying, he's quite pro Carlos, and he's saying there's a lot of mitigating circumstances with injuries, and we get that. It's not easy having to constantly alter your system, alter your team, but there are sort of disappointing elements as well. How we've had to turn to the darker arts, if you like, when we were initially supposed to be coming through into this brand new era, and we've had to go back a step. And I don't mind that if we stay up, but I'm struggling really. I'm struggling to sort of move this topic on, but I'm struggling to see a way forward. Like with this now, where do we go from here? I'm going to alter my agenda around a little bit here.
Matt,
do we think Town have enough just to limp over the line at the minute? Or is this just a one-off? We can chalk it down. We'll go beat Rotherham on Saturday. Happy days. No one cares about Norwich anymore. What do you reckon? Because, 2 ways this will go.
It is, isn't it? It's one of those, I didn't watch last night.
Surprisingly.
I was at my local squash club, so I'll chalk that one as with every defeat excuse, not watching. Squash club, if you miss a big game, that's where you are, isn't it? But yeah, I think it is one of them. You don't lose 7-0, right often. So, you can look at it 2 ways. You can say both Norwich were absolutely excellent and we were absolutely shambolic. And, like you said, just one of them bad nights at office. You see a few 5-0s and stuff like that, but to be 7, you've got to be really, really bad, haven't you? Let's be honest. There's not many 7s going. It used to be the thing, didn't it? On video printer, when you got to 7, it used to spell it out for people. So once you get to 7, it's cost us a proper drubbing, isn't it? Really. And I've watched goals quickly back today, and there were some decent goals, to be fair, but they just ran us ragged, didn't they? They were just better than us. And if you just hold your hands up and say, look, they were better than us, let's never speak of it again. And if you go and get 3 points against Norwich, it's suddenly
against Rotherham,
forgotten about it.
This could be a little dark secret that you don't talk about. One of those.
Yeah, you just brush it under the carpet, don't you? And everyone's happy because you've beat Rotherham. And really, when you look at league, if you beat Rotherham, you can almost say that you're pretty much safe, aren't you? Let's be fair. I think if we beat Rotherham, we'll still pick up another couple of points at least before end of the season. I've said it along. I can't see enough. I can't see enough teams down there getting enough points to catch us. And also bear in mind, there's a couple of teams below us as well. So even if they do pick up points, are they going to catch us? Probably not. I obviously like to see it confirmed, mathematically as soon as possible, and then we could maybe go on to what we've chatted about on here before. And as Kosi says, these lads who aren't going to be here, just don't play them, and let's have a look at some youth team players or players that we need to see who like Thomas, who can show us a bit of fight and a bit of grit. He's got a point to prove before starting next season, because there's obviously going to be a massive amounts of recruitment over the summer. If we've got 5 or 6 that are there and can show us something between now and end of the season, that might curtail down into not as many signings. So the lads that are here and staying have just got as much to prove, as any potential new signings that come through. So let's get safe and let's just put this whole shambolic season to bed and move on.
Matt, I just don't know what to think on Carlos anymore, mate. I've always been pro Carlos, but this 2021 kind of calendar year's been all over the shop for me. On one, it's kind of yin and yang. One part of me, so hang on, because he's got loads of players who don't want to be there. He's built little shit on the cards. But then you see stuff last night, the reactionary stuff on the pitch that he doesn't do. I mean, I know I maybe over-exaggerated a bit, but I went really last night. Mourinho would have made 5 subs at half-time. He would have made 5 substitutions. He'd have, bang. Don't do it. And then he made 1 sub, Scott I came on. Then he made another after 6 minutes. I just didn't get what we were kind of thinking. And I just don't know where we kind of stand with him. Part of me is thinking, yeah, like you said, Pos, get to the end of the season. I think we'll stop up. I don't think there's an issue. But I just think it's so big that we kind of finish strong and that as well. And for the first time in a long time, I'm just wondering, is he the man to take us forward? The stuff with it, playing the experience, guys, it just doesn't sit right with me when you see Keogh being garbage week after week after week. Stearman, rubbish. We've mentioned about Critchlow. There must be something going on behind the scenes. Carlos clearly does not rate a lot of these kids that we've kind of mentioned about. He's not giving anyone opportunities. Apart from 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, like by default, like last night we saw by Thomas. To me, there's a lot more negatives at the moment. I said it to you before we came on air, Matt. If Carlos went now, I don't think I'd be too fussed. If he'd have gone a month ago, I would have been, that's a bollocks decision. But part of me's thinking, because just get to the end of the season, Norwich were at the top of the league, but there's a lot weighing against him at the moment, mate.
It's easy to go a bit that way after losing 7-0, to be fair, isn't it? There's the emotions of losing 7-0 are not going to be great, are they, in fairness? So at that point, all the way getting hammered, Simon's going to chip in a second, but all the way through getting hammered, you sat there going, Carlos, what is going on? And Carlos is the one that you're looking at to change it, isn't it? Like I said before, I've not been on the Carlos hype train, if you like, since January. He won me around a little bit when he changed things at Birmingham, because part of my obviously Carlos knows far more than me about football, but part of my criticism was his sort of lack of adaptability and flexibility in sort of style, and he brought that in. So he won me back over a little bit, and I'm just going to sort of sit on it to the end of the season and then have a think. But for me, you have to question whether this club is set up for somebody like Carlos. That he came in with a bit of fanfare and how the club was going to do this, and this. And I don't really see a club that supports that kind of head coach, if you like, in the way that I would like. I think this summer will be, the telling factor when they get rid of the big earners, and we'll see what people at the club. There's going to be no hiding place for people at the club. We talk about people that we quite like Lee Bromby. We both like Lee, but there's when these high earners go and they've got to bring replacements in, there's no hiding for him, Josh Marsh, etc., and that recruitment team. There can't be any any more mistakes like they have over the last few years. Otherwise, I just feel they'll be heading to League One. It'll be that simple.
From my point of view, come back to your original question, I think we'll limp over the line. I think what perhaps taints Carlos a little bit is some of the hands he's been dealt. And if you think back to January window, we didn't bring in the striker we wanted. We've been given a couple of options, and that's, as I understand it, not necessarily through Carlos's fault, but it kind of does taint your opinion a little bit in terms of what you see on the pitch. And I think there's some kind of obviously mixed messages almost at the moment. The project that Carlos was inherited or took on was one to bring through the youth players to develop our kind of academy products. And right now there's very little evidence of that. And the two recent
the question
signings.
Is, Simon, are they good enough? Does the structure support the head coach? You know, that's the question that I was posing before, really.
Probably not. But a manager these days or a head coach won't be given the test of time for that structure to develop. Carlos isn't going to have 3-4 years to be able to develop an academy structure beneath that then feeds those players. There'll be an element of Carlos needs to deliver some immediate, not necessarily success, but immediate respectable results. And on last night's evidence, at least, we're kind of a long way from that. But the point I wanted to, and it's more of a question to you all, actually, that I wanted to ask and to anyone's listening. And it's a bit around, because he made around the subs last night. So we we threw the towel in very early doors, but Carlos threw the towel in kind of 45, 50 minutes back. He took off Hogg, he took off O'Brien, he took off Naby, probably with the idea of resting them in mind, kind of didn't want any injuries ahead of the big game of the weekend. And on one hand, I understand that. On one hand, I kind of accepted that last night's result had gone, we need to move on. But there's something at the back of my mind, which is, fucking hell, with 6-7-0 down here, this is embarrassing. And we're finishing the game with Scott High and Dehaney in the middle of the park. It could have well been 8 or 9 if Pookie had stayed on the pitch, couldn't it? Like, was he right to take those players off and rest them? Or actually, should he have been thinking, fucking hell, I need to kind of
all right,
keep some sense of respectability here, because I'm not sure kind of taking Hogg and O'Brien and the Sarr off last night was the reaction that I wanted, really.
I guess the result on Saturday will dictate how you feel long term. Yeah.
Well, it did really go. Norwich luckily had kind of gone down a gear, haven't they, in the second half, but I don't think it really affected him. I think kind of going what you said, Matt, Danny Cowley barely played any of these juniors as well. Carlos not playing the juniors. I think your question is the big one, mate. Are they good enough? And
it's just a question. There might be. I'm not saying they're not.
Both managers can't.
It's a question.
Because
there's a lot of noise comes out, isn't there, about how good these youngsters are. But I don't think it's this current crop of youngsters. I think the real talent, or what the club believe the real talent is the next sort of
the Kamaras, Diarras, Luke Daly's, that
sort of team. Now, are they suddenly going to be promoted up to first team end of this season? Because that's a massive step up, isn't it? Let's be honest. But if the club believe, there's noise comes out of the club that these will play in Premier League at some point because they're that good. Well, if they're that good, absolutely fantastic. Let's see them. As you say, Matt, does the structure warrant the noise about them? You don't know, because we don't actually see them play. We see a bit on YouTube here and there, and Isaac and Benza looked half decent on YouTube, didn't he? So clips can be not Benza, Diakabi, he looked pretty reasonable if you looked at
it. It was only 1 minute 20 though, his highlights video, so it can't have been that good.
No, do you know what I mean? Though you can put out, you can go in back garden and spawn in top corner if you try hard enough and long enough, and make that look good, can't you? So I think in regards to are the youth team players good enough? The current ones, you Scott Hayes, you Phillips, if they were good enough, surely they'd be starting on a more regular basis. So to sort of answer your question, I don't think they.
I quite like Phillips. I'll be honest. I like Phillips. I like what I've seen. I like a lot of what I've seen.
But if he's ready to play, Matt, why aren't he playing?
I think he needs a loan, to be honest. But from what I understand, his knee's pretty bad, so they were trying to manage him up until the new year.
So injury for striker then, brilliant.
Well, he had a serious knee injury, didn't he, when he was 16, 17? It was almost career-threatening, probably wasn't going to walk properly ever again. So I think they're trying to manage him. So I think he probably could have benefited from a loan, but they didn't want to send him out somewhere where they wouldn't get the sort of day-to-day management. Was from what I understand. I can't remember where I heard that, so it might be nonsense.
I think it's down to mentality, mate. In my opinion, it's like, right, over Easter, I think we'll be happy with 1 point. We've got us 1 point at Brentford. We've got a big game against Rotherham, and we'll sack the game off. And yeah, Norwich were great and stuff. But I just think...
Let me ask you a question, Kosi. What do you think the repercussions are for losing 7-0? Do you think...
There'll be none, mate, because if we win on Saturday, it'll all be brushed under the carpet, and the Instagram will be back with the world. I mean, that was pathetic last night. The club couldn't even be asked to put...
put a score on, didn't they?
Score on. But that sort of showed town, mate, because...
I want to put the score on, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet you any money today, because B team have won, will get a big headline. You know, to me, there's been... If you look at some of these results, even like in the kind of B team and the academy, we're losing to like Fylde and Fleetwood and stuff. And I'm sorry, yeah, it's not all about results, but these Grimsby Town, I think, didn't they beat us in that cup last week? They're bad signs, bad signs. And to me, it's just a mentality thing at Huddersfield Town. We get too carried away when we win, and we get too, when we lose, we don't want to know. We don't front up. And Carlos did apologise. What else could he do after the game last night? And again, I'm sorry to bang on about the Wagner, but all I could think about the last time we went on Norwich, we were on Sky again, and we didn't give a shit. We were ballsy. We went there. We put nose out of joint. I think Kachunga scored a beauty. We had a good following. We won. We were like, wow, this is Huddersfield Town, and we destroyed them at home. But it's like now, it's like back to pause like Chris Powell competing and stuff. Can we compete with teams with a parachute payment like Norwich? I just want to cease to fight every game. I hate it when we just bin games off like Bournemouth and Norwich and stuff. It doesn't.
Might as well not play.
It's like youth football, isn't it? That's the thing. It's like when you're an under 23s coach, you can afford to. Like our academy, I know a lot of people. I struggle with this a little bit, and they don't go to win games. They go to work on certain aspects of games, and they look to do certain things within a game, and they don't really care about the result. And a lot of people struggle with that, and I struggle with it a little bit, to be honest. But you can't do that in first team football. You can't just toss a game, and it feels like we've tossed 2 games this season, and that's just.
Do you think that Carlos has a little bit of that, Matt? I've mentioned before about his obviously being at Leeds and under 23s, and it's nice to play nice football in under 23s and the development side. But if you don't win, it doesn't matter. Do you think he still has a little bit of that? And I'm not suggesting just from last night, because we didn't play any nice football last night. But if we've scored a goal from back to front that they've worked on in training all week, but we lose 2-1, is he more happy that we've taken from the training pitch onto the first team pitch, or is he absolutely raging that we've lost 2-1? Because I don't know. I think David Wagner did this a lot. David Wagner used to drop in the second string. Your Martin Craners, your Colemans, etc. here and there. But we were a lot more savvy with it, and we had a system set up where we wouldn't take the hammerings as much. Whereas if Carlos does it, we get battered. And it looks bad and it feels bad.
Yeah. The difference is we had a system, particularly that promotion season, and everyone knew their role, everyone knew their responsibility. And it feels like under Corbrand, certainly recently, it's like tweaking things, everything, week in, week out, something slightly different. Someone's playing a slightly different position, the shape slightly different.
Yeah, a good thing to focus on there will be Dwayne Holmes. Dwayne Holmes was signed. Apparently, he was Carlos's number 1 target for this summer, Dwayne, and we brought it forward. And he's played.
I struggle to believe that.
He's played Dwayne Holmes pretty much everywhere.
That cannot be right.
Apparently, Carlos was a huge fan.
Has he said that, or has someone said that for him?
Well, I can't remember. My memory's going.
Probably don't even know.
Things are kicking in up here in old age. But
how would he know?
But the thing is with Dwayne, he's not played in his proper role once. He's played left wing, he's played right wing, he's played up front, he's played a false 9, he's played all over the place, and he's trying to learn this man-to-man marking system. And we do play a very technical man-to-man system, and he's struggling big time with it. And a lot of the players are struggling to adapt to what Carlos wants. And part of me thinks maybe he'd be a better coach the higher up he is, and the further down, he might have to taper his expectations with us maybe a little bit, because we're not as good as maybe what he wants.
It's right, though, we've chatted on here about just going back simple, and we seem to do that over that little 5 unbeaten run. We seem to go back to basics, and it worked. Let's be honest. Overload of information whilst you're playing football, it detracts from actually playing football, doesn't it? Because you must constantly be thinking, am I in right space? If I lose this ball, where do I need to be? And actually, look at some of the greatest players that have ever been. They just get on with it.
Andy Booth.
They're not worried about where they're standing or who am I marking at if I kick this out, I need to get into this space because I need to press him or I need to do that. It's just, Lewis O'Brien's a perfect example. He's rekindled a little bit of form and then he's put him out to a position where he's played badly.
Yeah, well, after that, it just bogged my PISS that, because not only are you're taking the worst bit of him and asking him to do something, you're taking away a big attacking weapon for us that's been proven last 2 weeks. It
breaks two positions, doesn't it?
It makes no sense to me, Matt. And he almost, obviously, like Jaden Brown, you're not kind of going to, but I'm just thinking he's someone who can hurt Norwich, but he ain't going to hurt him there, is he?
No, especially when he's got Emi Buendia there, who's probably the best player the Championship's seen for, I don't know, for quite a while, isn't it? But I want to bin off Norwich. I don't want to talk about Norwich anymore. I feel like we've spent too long talking about that. I want to talk about Brentford, because Norwich was negative, obviously, but Brentford was actually a really good point, and I want to talk about this a little bit more. And it was a really unexpected point. So Town's goal was a little bit messy, wasn't it?
They've been watching us.
Yeah, a bit of a mess from Brentford. Good pressing from Verco and Lewis O'Brien with the old swinger, just put it in the centre of the net. I thought Town started brilliantly against Brentford. They're playing a back four instead of the back three, so 4-2-3-1 with sort of narrow wide players, and it really worked to smother Brentford. And the real sort of the player that was doing the damage for me was Ajax Verco. So he played a really strange role. It was kind of like a hybrid halfback role that he was playing. And he was dropping from the two in midfield into the right centre-back role and coming back. And Brentford had absolutely no idea what to do with him, because when they had the ball, he was in midfield. And then when we had the ball, he's all of a sudden he's centre-back, and then he's up there, pressing for the goal. And I thought he was outstanding. And then when he went off, that's when Brentford started to, Bakuna came on. Bakuna doesn't do the same thing as Ajax Verco. And that's when they sort of started taking a bit more control. I have to say, Oliver Langford is an absolutely woeful referee both ways in that game. Some of the decisions, we had him against Luton and he gave them an absolute nothing free kick, which they scored from early in the season. So I remember him. But some of the decisions, Naby Sarr's handball, in the box was as stonewall a penalty as you're ever likely to see. I wasn't so sure on the Lewis O'Brien one. I thought Lewis maybe was on his way down, but we can see those given. And Buemo should have been shown a second yellow card for diving in the box. That was a shocker, where he tried to corner penalty. But Langford aside, I thought we played well. We defended well. And I know, because you've given Richard Keogh some stick, but I think Richard Keogh's taking the Norwich game aside, I think he's been really good the last 2 or 3 weeks. Now we've simplified everything. And he it's almost like he stood there with a little PlayStation pad controlling Naby Sarr next to him as well, because Naby Sarr's been decent next to him. And I think he's been quite valuable. I don't want to see him long term or anything, but I think in the short term, he's been quite valuable up until last night. And for me, him and Lewis O'Brien and Naby were top notch. What about you guys then? So the goal for me that we conceded was
Matt,
sort of classic Huddersfield.
I just think that sums us up, Matt, because Janssen, we get away with great defending, but with second ball, that we're not alert enough, we're not hungry enough. That's why they're in the playoffs, and that's why we're struggling to stay up, because they were switched on and wanting that ball back in the box and that as well. And it was so frustrating. Them are the worst goals. I'd rather someone smash it in 30-yarder and that as well. It was so frustrating. And then we were rocking them, weren't we? Because Tony bang off the post, keeper were nowhere. And then, to be honest, although we had a chance at the end, but it do hand it, wasn't it?
D'Amico cut inside, didn't he?
But yeah, I was frustrated with their goal, because I'd rather it be. I don't want Janssen to score anyway, but to be honest, it'd be better going in like that than how it did it.
Well, Carlos was frothing because he didn't think it was a throw-in for Brentford, and then it came off of Pontus's arm, didn't it? But it's one of those sort of borderline 50-50s. Pause, you're a defender, so me as a goalkeeper, you as a defender, so put yourself in Richard Keogh's shoes there. He stood with his man, and all of a sudden 4 Town players go and sprint and try and close down the ball, to the one player who's put the ball back across, and they've left 3 men unmarked in the box, which, as a centre-back, as Richard Keogh, you're doing your absolute nut in there, aren't you?
Well, you are, because as a defender, it looks bad. Teams conceded, you're a defender, it automatically looks bad on you, doesn't it? It's just a lack of discipline, isn't it? Like you say, ball goes out, that should be one player goes to close it down, 3 stay, mark, and deal with what comes after that. You could say it's, a little bit of lack of communication as well. Put a name on it, I'm going, you stick kind of thing. Just another soft goal, really. Like Kosi says, we've cleared it off at line and it's gone out and then it's come back in. And you can imagine being there, couldn't you? It's one of them where, you sat behind goal, especially at that end, and you clear it off at line, so you're giving it big into the way end, and then 4 seconds later you sat back down with your head in your hands because they've poked it in, and they happen, don't you? Have them moments, but again, it's probably a bit of his own doing more than Brentford, creating a great goal there. But I think we actually did all right against Brentford. I know, especially on our WhatsApp group, we quite a lot of negative comments about stuff, but again, the Brentford are better than us. So sometimes I think when you're watching Town, you've got to take away that we actually used to be pretty good back, when Wagner were here and stuff, and you've got to judge it on how we are now. And Brentford are just better than us, but they didn't play us off at Park. We worked hard off the ball. People are working hard. It's the bare minimum, which I agree it is. But you've got to work hard in a smart way. Just working hard, just running about like an idiot, is worse than not working hard at all sometimes. But we worked hard, we pressed well. I thought we limited the chances. They've got form of, slicing through teams of Brentford, and I actually thought we played all right. We got the goal. You could say that were a mistake by Brentford, obviously, with what happened before it fell to Lewis. But I actually came away from Brentford thinking, you know what, it's a point there against a team that I didn't think we'd get a point against. So fair play. It's just such a shame that we then went to Norwich and played like that.
Odd, and it's sad though. I know we've gone forward a few years since Wagner, but you're happy you didn't think we get a point. We're at home. We're at home to a team like Brentford, who they've built over the last few years. They're much better. Everything about them's better than us. The scouting, the management, and stuff. But it's like we're buzzing. We're at home. We've got a point. That's how far our kind of ambitions are really. I know it's the reality and what have you, but it makes me feel really sad, really, that you just kind of come to this. And I know
it's heartbreaking, like you said. It's back to Chris Powell.
Yeah, we'll come to that ATT thing next. I think Matt, won't we? But it's like, it was a good point, but let's be honest, they probably should have won, really. But yeah, what a good point.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so I think we got to credit Carlos and Town for the way that we played against Brentford. It's a decent point. And one thing that I wanted to maybe mention as well, Simon, I'll bring you in. I thought Ryan Schofield's been improved the last few weeks. He was a little bit better ball into box, and he made a great save as well with his feet. Are we seeing Ryan maybe come out of that little bad spell that he was in before, just after, up until recently, and maybe coming out the other side now, do you think? Although the illness last night.
Yeah, I think so. I think kind of probably seen an uptick in his confidence. I think kind of he obviously had that kind of poor period around Christmas, as you mentioned, and there was talk about maybe taking him out of the team. We signed Jason Luke-Weiler at the time, who we kind of thought might be kind of someone who the go-to for some experience. But he's kind of come back strongly, and hats off to him. He wouldn't have made much difference last night, let's be honest. But I think kind of it's shown the value in persisting with him. What I would say is I'm surprised that other teams haven't necessarily exploited his weaknesses as much as what they may well have done. I think kind of for me, watching him, and presumably from other analysts watching him, it's quite obvious that he still struggles under the high ball to command his box. Some of his decision-making is a little bit ropey. And I am surprised that other teams haven't perhaps put as many diagonal balls into the box, kind of dropped some corners directly on his head as what they may have done. He will still need to improve in that area. But for me, I'd kind of think I'd be comfortable with him taking the number 1 jersey next season. I think there's other areas of the pitch we need to focus on more in the kind of the summer window.
Very good. So man of the match for you guys, Lewis O'Brien for me. Shall we give an official or unofficial? Andy takes that chance man of the match for the Brentford game. Who are we going to go for? Cos?
Yeah, it's got to be him, mate. But worries me that he's playing really well live on Sky. You know what's going to happen in summer. We'll get a bid in for him, mate.
He's off, mate. He's off. I'm convinced Lewis O'Brien's off.
Maybe that's why we played him left back last night.
Chicken's already sold him. Yeah, bring it down.
Yeah, it's not
Chicken wrote an article and pretty much sold him for us, didn't he? So, yeah.
Are we home against is Sky Bournemouth game on Sky? They'll be playing at goalkeeper then, probably.
It's weird. Yeah. Bit short for that, isn't it? But yeah, you guys agree, Pos, Si, Lewis O'Brien?
Yeah.
Well done, Lewis. You get nothing but praise from us guys. Right, so I think that's all I've got really. So penalty for Lewis O'Brien as well. Are we going to say yes or no? I'm edging towards no. Pos.
I've seen it. It's one of them. If it were given against you, you'd probably be a little bit upset. But you see him give him, don't you? There's kind of almost like a clash of legs, isn't there? He's kind of kicked him and gone. But some you get, we'd have probably missed it anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
That'd be interesting to see who the penalty taker would be now. Right, okay, yeah. So Brentford done and dusted. I think we'll go away. Let's read some of the messages out. So thanks to everyone for being patient and joining us on YouTube. Just looking at some of the. Let's go through some of your comments here. So sorry, my eyes. I think I need to get back to the opticians again because the writing looks really small all of a sudden. Right, okay. So let's check down and so Leo still reckons we're not home and hosed yet. Goal difference could come into it, which would not be great after last night. Jordan Lemon Drumming says, things are bad when Carlos can't even be bothered crouching anymore. Thoughts on Umar Niasa's injury? Just seems like bad luck to me. Slipped, split, someone fell on him, groin goes. It's just typical how it took us 2 months to sign this guy and now potentially could be out for a similar amount of time. It's Jonathan Tahui levels, is this, isn't it? The Umar Nias thing, but it just sounds really unfortunate, especially after everybody took to him with his initial interview. John Smith joining a bit late. All my concerns about Corberan came straight back last night. Lacking team structure and adjustments. Is Corberan just an idealist? Jordan Lemon Drumming. Pause. What's going on here? He's all over the shop, isn't he? I'm going to have all sorts of editing to do tonight.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, iPad nice. I've changed cameras.
You're on your phone, aren't you?
Got a multimedia setup going here, lads.
Multimedia? You can't even fill a screen here, Pos.
Turn it sideways.
Nokia 8210, mate. What's going on, man?
And more positions than
there we go. Are you wearing shorts? I think we saw straight up them then. That wasn't great, was it? Right, so let's have a look. So Depressed Terrier says our academy lads are just not good enough and massively overhyped by the club. I'm sure things we'll see on that. There are a couple of good ones in there, but they're very young and the step is quite large. So we'll see if they can do that. So until we get an experienced director of football, instead of these that have been given roles during the last 3 years, nothing will change. Leo says that's true. Carlos was tracking Holmes when he was at Leeds. And then Terrier MD says, didn't expect to get anything at Norwich, but if we don't beat Rotherham, then Corberan has to be sacked. He is a guy to develop players, not to win games, and look totally lost. There's quite a few more here. So Tom says, without Lewis, we'd be far worse off. Wish we had more players with that work rate. And then JH7 says, not banging the same drum, Kosi, but who was our director of football during the first year of Wagner's reign? And we all know who that was, Stuart Webber. And for me personally, I sat in a room with Stuart Webber, and I know he brought Wagner, or brought the idea of Wagner to the club, but a lot of those players that came in, Stuart Webber was not responsible for. And one thing I will say is I sat in a room and I heard Stuart Webber say, our academy is not good enough. Phil Billing will never make it at Huddersfield Town. I've had to sign 4 players to make this club money going forward. And those 4 players were Joel Coleman, Tariq Combs-Dennis, Kyle Dempsey, and Jordi Hiwula. So I'm not having that Stuart Webber was this perfect director of football for Huddersfield Town after some of those. They didn't make us any money, did they? But and he also tried to block the Michael Hayfield transfer. So there you go. Right. So so that I think we'll go through those. Big Neil's on. Question for all. No fence sitting. Corberan, stay or go. I'm waiting until the end of the season, so I'm going to sit on my fence. Neil, suck it. What about you guys?
I don't think there's really any value in getting rid of him now, unless we have a really bad result in the next few. But at the end of the season, me personally, and reassess where we go from there.
Yeah, it's not really Carlos I'm worried about. It's the whole thing around it. Whether it backs up Carlos, and if it does, then great. But it kind of feels like Huddersfield Town would be safer with an Alex Neil in charge than But I don't know. How about you, Pos? Staying quiet there.
No, I mean, I fully agree with Si. I mean, you get rid of him, and who do you bring in? Do you just bring in someone to plod for these 3 to 5 years? Or they brought him in. The made him out to be the next greatest manager, Then they give him a new contract. So in summer, they've got to give him backing. Otherwise, there's absolutely no point. So
that's the thing, isn't it? He's got to be given the tools to do the job. That's my thing, really. Is he being given the tools? I know things have conspired against us quite badly, haven't they? I know COVID's obviously not conspired against just us, but a lot of things have conspired and gone wrong for us. And I don't think we imagined it would be like this.
But I think we just need to move on to this ATT because it all links in and that as well. Because
let's give a doff of the cap first, cause to Ian Bertley, who managed to get a front and back sponsor for the shirt after being here for 1 month. So he managed to get Utilita for the front and Sports Broker for a back. So I think we have to say fair play to Ian Bertley, because that also moves into the ATT stuff. Because
on a 3-year deal, which I thought was a good thing. We hopefully won't be having this kind of saga year in, year out. Hopefully gives a bit.
Exactly.
Before we even discuss the minutes, let's give HTSA some praise, because I thought it was an absolute disgrace that the club, and we've seen them before, again, just peddling this positive stuff. Just be honest with us. Don't treat us like mugs. If we did our podcast like the club do their website, there'd be no one there. There'd be no one listening because they're not honest. There were a meeting held, the ATT panel, and the minutes they put out compared to the HTSA version, there were nowhere near, and it was absolutely disgraceful. And you know what? These minutes, in my opinion, are some of the most depressing stuff I've read in the Huddersfield Town for many, many years. It might be the reality, but I mean, I know you're going to quote some stuff, Matt, but I read this and my head starts sunk. They came out on the day of the international break, so I'm thinking, let's have a weekend off town, cheer myself up, whatever. And these things came out, and I just think shame on the club for putting that, watered down minutes out, because there's some massive important points that you're going to cover in a minute, Matt. And then they were just
putting a lot of pressure on me here. I haven't even looked at them.
Yeah,
I've glanced. I can wing it. Don't worry.
I suppose, God, let's go to the first big one and that as well, because
club communication, fan engagement. Is this your number one?
No, I want to come to the second point about the medium and the long-term strategy. We'll come to the scandal, in my opinion, of the iFollow and the season card carry on. That was a scandal as well. But so you were asking us there, what Carlos, stay or go? So in my opinion, I'm thinking, what is
Neil asked.
What was Carlos's remit at the start of this season? What was it? So I'm thinking, what is it? When you look at this here, HTSA asked whether the board's long-term aim is still to make Huddersfield Town a top 30 club. Mark Devlin said the club is in the early stages of formulating a long-term strategy. So we're like 9 months into the season, like Carlos has set off with the same people on the board, and we'll form the club.
This is the club as well, Kosi. This isn't just Carlos. This is the club. So 9 months. It's a season in 9 months, really.
Incredible. In the early stage of formulating a long-term strategy, God, let me just get your heads are going to bow in a second. The club wants to compete at the top end of the championship in the next 3 to 5 years. But obviously, we haven't formulated this long-term strategy. What the hell's that? So, in line with the aim set out in the club charter. So, the club charter, what the hell's that? Any ideas? Answers on a postcard? Anyone?
Yeah, it's that thing on the website, isn't it? With that it goes on about integrity and all that stuff.
We want to compete at the top end of the championship in the next 3 to 5 years, even though we're being Premier League like for 2 seasons, blah, blah, blah. But in a manner that does not involve significant financial risk, which, yeah, I can kind of get it, and we don't want to go into any debt. But when I just hear all that on that point too, that makes me think I want to do something else for my Saturdays.
Well, the thing is, it makes me think, should we just sack this podcast up and start it again in 3 to 5 years when it's worth doing? That's kind of what you think.
What kind of
I understand.
What do you do with that?
I understand a lot of this, and I understand why a lot of people are unhappy. But essentially, they brought a coach in Carlos Corberán who they think will improve players, and the club will be able to sell them. And the club, ideally, are just wanting to sell players, sell, bring in Lolloped, spend 300 grand on Sorba Thomas. And this is what we did under Dean, remember, from 2012. I think Nigel Clibbin said it in one Q&A, and the idea was the rule of 4 or something, where the idea was to bring a player in and sell him for 4 times what they paid for him. And I don't think it's far different from what we used to do. And to be fair, we were never anywhere near cracking the top 30 under Dean, apart from that one miracle season under David Wagner. And I think what they're looking to do is just to try and sell a lot of players like Brentford have done, and then reinvest, sell. And it'll take 3 to 5 years. And they've obviously looked at the the commercials, and we love Sean Jarvis, and Sean Jarvis, we all think did a great job. But I think they're looking at the commercials and going, do you know what? These commercials aren't bringing in enough money for this club to sit comfortably higher up in the table. So they've brought in Ian Bertley and trying to do things maybe differently. Mark Devlin hasn't said an awful lot how they're going to do things differently, but they look like they're going to try and get the club more profitable, bringing in more money through selling players and through commercials. And then from there, the wage bill should go up and help to elevate the club. And that's essentially it. But the way they've worded it pretty much goes, do you know what? No, what's going to happen here to 3 to 5 years. And it's like, Mark Devlin, who apparently his daughter works in social media, probably should know. And Brentford fans love him for his communication. And I thought, I don't mind Mark that much, to be honest.
That Billy from Besotted was bigging him up. That Mark Devlin, great communicating with the fans. I'd seen any evidence of this.
But just be careful of how you word things. If you say to Huddersfield fans, you know what, it's going to be shit for three or 5 years. People aren't going to buy season tickets. And then in 3 to 5 years, people are going to go, well, how come we're not top 30? And then they're going to go, because you didn't buy your season ticket, so we've not had the money to do it. You have to be careful. You have to, rather than saying 3 to 5 years, you have to say, look, we're going to try and make incremental adjustments, year on year improvement, rather than just saying 3 to 5 years, we might finish 10th, happy days. It's not what we want to hear. Whereas if he dressed up slightly differently and said, look, last year we're at 18th, we finished. We're looking to finish higher every year, improvement year on year on year. And people are going, do you know what? Yeah, I can buy into that. Whereas they're not going to buy into someone going, do you know what? Fuck it off for 3 to 5 years, and we'll see you in 5 years when it's all right. They're not going to buy that. Just be careful how you word things, because Town fans will take that, because we've been so shit for 3 years. So they're looking at that going, not another 3 years of this crap. I can't cope with that. That's immediately what springs to mind, and you can't blame people for thinking that way.
No. I think to me though, it's like, I can imagine the club might be watching this and thinking, well, we're only being honest, blah blah blah. But Matt, you've just got.
We appreciate the honesty. It's just you have to be a bit more. The way you tell it has to be a bit more sexy than just saying, "Look, lads, this is going to be wank for 3 years." You can't just do that.
As a fan, you just want to dare. You want to feel that you're following something that's got a chance of doing something, and I think it's just hard to take when you kind of hear that, because you might get Phil like watching this thinking, "Well, that's the reality. Suck it up." But I'm thinking, no, because. Like Wagner dared us to dream. Well, okay, 1 miracle season, 2 miracle season if you include the staying up. But to me, that's like taking it all away, and we need to be happy again, which is how it's panning out at the moment. Just to kind of maybe getting 13th, 40th, and then let's wait to see when the next kind of roadmap is built, the long-term strategy. How long does it take to formulate a long-term strategy? How long does that take to do? Why can't they just say, "Am I being naive?" It's like you say, yearly improvement. We want to get back to the Premier League, even if that might be pie in the sky, and the probably chances all thinking, hang on a minute, they want it back in the Premier. But just say something like that inspires me, because unless I'm being naive, that's just expect League One more than getting back in the top flight. It does, doesn't it? It stinks, man. Pause, what do you think, man?
Look, let's just bring in what Terrier MD said and throw it to Pause as well. And he's put, Matt, I get that in buying and selling players, our recruitment team. But our recruitment team is not good enough to buy players to sell for a profit, in my opinion. You don't have to tell me about the recruitment team, because I'm probably the number one critic of people in there. But, like I said earlier, this summer, there's nowhere to hide for these people. The high earners are away, and it's all about trying to bring in those players now that can do it. I'm incredibly skeptical that recruitment team has, and it goes back again to what we're saying about giving Carlos the tools for the job. Are the right structures in place? I don't think they are. And the recruitment team have overseen Diakabis and Benzes, Bokhorns, etc. And of course, but they have overseen Karoma, and stuff like that. So there are successors in there. But this recruitment team has got to be, I'm going to swear then, but it's got to be fucking bulletproof, this summer. Otherwise, like I said earlier, we could end up in League One, and then that's a long, long way back when you look at Sunderland, Ipswich Town, etc. But sorry, Post, go on.
No, I was going to agree with you, Matt. You've got to. It's all very business speak, in it. 3 to 5 years, long-term strategies, and all that rubbish. As a fan, you don't want to hear 3 to 5 years, do you? You want to hear, as you say, next season we're looking to improve. You don't need to specify exact positions, because that's what Town fans are like. As proved under Phil's tenure, they hang on every word. you still speak to people now, and they go back to his first ever cinema speeches when he were banging on about loans of Aaron Moy quality and all that sort of stuff. People will, if he says that, people expect that to happen. So, 3 to 5 years, like you said,
that loan of Aaron Moy quality, Kieran Dowell scored against us last night. As an aside, there you go.
Well, yeah, you've got to be a little bit more savvy. I mean, it's really tough because as fans, we sit here and on podcasts and on Facebook groups and forums and all that sort of stuff. We all cry out for honesty. So if that's the plan and they're being honest, we can't have a pop if we don't like that. Do you know what I mean? Just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit. If you want honesty, that's the truth.
Yeah, but no, don't be too honest. Yeah, I know what you mean.
You've almost been over. You've just got to.
I generally don't mind the 3 to 5 year thing, Pos. I don't mind that they've got that. I can take what he means, but people are fed up of the last 3 years, so they've got to be a little bit more careful in the way that they word it.
People are at sort of close to boiling point all the time because everything's just been crap for so long, and it don't take much to get an explosion, does it? At the moment within fan base, and little things like that can just tip people over the edge. The actual process of it, buying a player, training him up, selling him on, buying another couple, training them up, buying another 3, it actually does make sense. But I think the problem is, Matt, as you've just said, there's no trust in the recruitment.
Can I tell you something that somebody mentioned to me earlier as well? And I thought, oh God, yeah. Lewis O'Brien, because he came through the academy. If we sell him for big money in the summer and it's spread over X amount of years, because he'll have gone down as 0 on the balance sheet because he's come through the academy. Guess what? The first payment will go towards.
Go on.
Tax, like Philip Billing. so that that's the kind of things that football fans don't want to hear about, isn't it? That kind of thing. But they tell you the honest thing, and then they go, "No, I don't want to." And it's just about trying to find that happy medium, which Dean nailed time and time again. Really, didn't he?
I think sometimes with Dean, though, I think he said things that people wanted to hear. So whereas Probably. I don't think the current setup has that ability to manipulate the fan base, if you want, for want of a better word. I think Dean were very, after the event, made him and the club always look in the right, whereas I think at the moment we're the other way almost with the club, and the people involved are pointing the arrows directly back at them rather than firing the bullets away, if that makes sense.
Expectations have changed as well, because we kind of
definitely.
The Premier League was a dream, and arguably it's a dream again now. But kind of having been there and tasted it, and we've probably certain things, legacies on the training ground, etc. But then that not to come to fruition the way we expected. I think kind of people's expectations are slightly different under this regime.
I want to read out some comments because there's some good ones coming through as well. Dan Peckett says, as someone who's born and raised in Coventry, I've seen what happens to clubs who are around the Championship with zero plan or ambition. They fell ugly. We have to be careful. Dag Barnett, one of my favourites on Down at the Max, says, belief costs absolutely nothing. I can live with a prudent approach, but have some semblance of hope. The club has a negative mindset. The fans are treated like clueless ingrates. It's not good enough. And I feel that. JH7 says, Kosi, why doesn't PH just come out and say, listen, my ego was and is bigger than my wallet, and I've effed up. I should not have bought the club. Phil's not going to say that, is he?
We can get Phil on here again, no problem. But it's like what you kind of said there, Si, what you'll say pretty much as this statement that's been released, and then people will make their own conclusions. But it's what can you say, man? It's
just to finish that, Chris Green says he can't trust the recruitment team as far as he could throw them. I've seen your arms, Chris. You're not throwing anyone far, mate. So there we go. Little razzling for Chris Green.
What about that I follow thing? So again, that was another thing that would try to be covered up in that as well. But let me just
that was bad, wasn't it? And
it was bad. And DTS got basically.
I'll always try and stick up for the club where I can, but I have absolutely no argument for to help the club in this, because it's.
What's this? What was this about?
So basically, people had free iFollow for pretty much all the season. Well, 80%.
They were allowed to defer the season cards, and they got iFollow anyway for the inconvenience. Was that it?
Yeah, pretty much.
And there's 11,000 of us. I've got 3 season cards. My 3-year-old son does not use iFollow, but I could have, now I'm sat there going, I should have deferred 2 season cards. It'd have saved me 300 quid.
Just on that, I think it's mentioned in a minute, it might have been mentioned somewhere else, Matt, that it came out that there were a meeting and there were members of Cowshed Loyal present, and I was one of those. And I think that what's actually happened there has got misconstrued.
Good.
I don't want to do the whole Reece Dinsdale and not break any confidence and stuff like that, but from what I understand from what was said, that were done on a very limited individual case by case basis. It weren't an option that was available to everybody that didn't publish, as it may have been originally thought of.
What were the individual cases then? Were they mates of people who work there, or what's the just
they didn't go into specific details, but it's not like that were an option that they just didn't tell anybody about. It were, I'm sure people can probably think of things that may have led people to be able to, get a deferral on a.
Yeah, do you know what? I don't know the individual cases, so probably best not to comment. But from what it was worded, from what we saw, it felt like people had deferred season cards and then got iFollow, which would have been wrong. But if there's something behind that which is completely different, then okay.
That definitely did happen, and some people that has happened to, but I don't think it were.
Quite as cynical as that. Yeah.
Cynical attempt.
Okay, that's fine.
But again, that should be communicated as well. That's what it is, not just hidden away in minutes that don't make any sense.
Yeah, fair enough. Kos, do you want to continue to go? So we'll look at the ATT stuff, and I'm aware of the time as well. The fan engagement. The club have made an attempt to send out the monthly updates. To be honest, a lot of the time there's not a lot to say, I don't think, at a football club, and and there's certainly nothing that winning a few games wouldn't make people happier with, for sure. I think winning games is pretty much the source of the frustration, if I'm honest, because where are we? Bottom of the 92 clubs for not winning in the last 3 years or something.
I don't. HTSA and Huddersfield Town are meant to be one, aren't they? We're meant to be linked together. The HTSA represent Huddersfield Town. Why aren't they just linking the minutes to the website instead of putting out the gash that they expect us to believe? Be honest with us. Don't treat us like mugs. That was said in the minute meeting. The HTSA Twitter kind of just put it out like they do every meeting. Put that on the website. That's the truth. We want to see it. Don't treat us like idiots. Same with your reports that we get in when we lose at Fleetwood. And what was that one last week, Matt? Site. They were like Laser Quest or something. What we were concentrating on. What were the exact quote when we got beat by Grimsby or something? It was pathetic. Just don't treat us like mugs. Same with the Instagram last night. We lost. You'd be quick to put on a 3-0 Norwich, if we'd have won there. They couldn't even put the score. Don't take your bat and ball home just because the chips are down. Be honest with us, be consistent with us, and don't treat us like mugs. They're going to have, another thing, Matt, I suppose, to kind of throw it in. When the hell are we going to get the season cards announced? Didn't they say in here? They don't even know, do they?
I think Mark Devlin said in we're going to throw in the bit about the Facebook interview Mark Devlin did. So well done to Phil Spate and Mark Overend for organising that interview with Mark Devlin as well that went on Facebook. And I think Mark said in Mark, I don't know him personally to call him Mark, but I think he said mid-April was when they hope to get something out about that on the
There's going to be uproar either way now on that.
I think they might be waiting to see what division we're in before announcing what's going on. So who knows? Maybe May at this rate.
So going to be uproar. They can't win with this announcement because people like me and everyone else who's kind of got one for this season who got nothing, and then there's going to be people like they've got to put them up, but unless they give the season card holders something back, I just wonder whether we might get it. I don't know. I don't envy them.
I don't know. I'll be honest. If they kept it for $250 for everyone, even though I paid last year and kept it in, I wouldn't have a problem with that, to be honest. But I appreciate I might be in the minority, but I wouldn't have an issue if everyone else was $250.
I was going to say $250 for everyone and a free kit for anyone who had one last year. So effectively, you got it for $200
or a shop voucher or something.
It would not be a shirt.
Yeah. I've got no issue if they keep it $250 because at the end of the day, we need as many people in there as possible, and
they can't put it up, can they? Let's be fair.
No, I think that might be why the delay is. I've got a feeling that might be why there's a bit of a delay. I think that maybe we're going to put it up, and the reaction to that potentially happening wasn't positive, in social media. So I think maybe they've gone back to the drawing board a little bit and just might be thinking.
Somebody will have a spreadsheet on go, won't they, with figures and that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
To make it balance best.
It's probably one for another podcast because we've kind of covered it. But I just wonder what Carlos's remit was at the start of the season. What were your objectives?
I don't think he had any. I think it was essentially just don't get relegated and let's just see improvement in players. That's all I think it was.
I suppose it's one for the review show, isn't it? But I just think these last. I know it's an obvious thing.
A lot of things could happen between now and then. So.
Matt, we need a big run in, not just because I think we'll stop up. I mean, obviously Saturday's huge, but we need a big run in. We need to win a lot of these games. Is that how many we've got left? Is it 8? Is it? Or is it 7?
7 or 8, yeah.
8? I think.
I don't know. Where's Brady? Brady would know.
Honestly, this could be really big if we have a nice, finish to the season, and then kind of a bit of optimism season cards. I think not just win against Rotherham and then lose the next 5. Bristol City, another one. Nigel Pearson's took over. They haven't won a game. Absolute stinking. I think they've lost the last 7 home games. Bizarrely, it's some weird. I know COVID football's different, but I just think it's so important for us as a fan base and club to.
We've got 7 left. Most have got 6 because we've got the Bournemouth game. That needs to be replayed because of the FA Cup.
I know Wednesday won, but I still think they're done. Do you?
Have you looked at their fixtures? They've got Bristol City and a few others that are a bit like Bristol City at the minute. So you look at Sheffield Wednesday and they're not done just yet. And Birmingham are fighting a little bit under Lee Bowyer as well.
Matt,
Rotherham, I think if we beat Rotherham, I think that'll be them done.
We watched that game on Monday and it wasn't a 3-0, was it?
No, I watched them against Millwall for a bit as well. And they genuinely were the better team in both games. They've just been very unlucky. And I think Town, obviously, we've got the preview show coming out Thursday night, but we do need to watch them. They haven't pulled up the sticks yet, Rotherham.
I've got a prediction for Saturday, guys.
Here we go.
He's going to score ex-Miller, ready to stick it up him.
Ishmael.
Maligned, dodgy Tash, leading the line. Danny Ward's first goal Saturday. Huddersfield Town, guys, get on him. You know it.
Campbell will start for sure, won't you now? Danny Ward probably will. Come on. Yeah. Is there anything else in the ATT that stuck out for you then, Kosi, apart from the 3 to 5 year? There's the other thing about Huddersfield Town will be taking control. I think I might be getting a bit blurred now with the Facebook interview, but there was news that Huddersfield Town later on this year will be taking over the stadium, sort of running of the stadium, if you like. So KSDL seem like they've gone bust. I think there's 9 million worth of repairs needed on the stadium or upgrades or something. There was quite a lot.
I thought we spent a lot of money on stadium when we got to the Premier League.
Yeah, I did, but I don't know. I might have got that wrong. But there seems to be a lot of money that needs to be done on repairs. I don't know where that's going to come from. How do you feel about that? Because Kosi, you rather like KSDL or liked them, didn't you?
Mate, the thing is, if you're getting a train from like Huddersfield to Dewsbury or whatever, you look at our stadium or you even see it. I was walking over there by Peak District, you could see it, and you think that looks good. When you get near it, you can see it's not drop it a bit, but it needs a lot of kind of work doing on it and that as well. And when you
I haven't seen it for a year.
No, it's. I think the good thing is that we need is talking to maybe getting a fans bar, this, that, and the other, and creating something. And I know it's one for another pod, isn't it, really? But, the fan zone. I think that's another thing where there's like the disconnection has started. I think a lot of people did feel that connection with the canal side, the fan park, and it makes me laugh what they put it behind their way, and it's not the same. It's not really a fan zone. And that stuff that was massive in our front to being, to achieve all that's gone.
I think Mark Devlin mentioned in that Facebook interview that is it Green King that do rope walk? I don't think they're returning, so that might be an empty space. So there might be something that they could do with the rope walk as well. So I don't know how I feel about a fan zone being inside, but there's certainly something they could do there for supporters. I think he mentioned something about pouring rights because obviously, I like going to Magic Rock are our sponsors, but even if they weren't our sponsors, they for me do the best ales in Huddersfield. So I'd like to be able to have 1 or 2 pots of that, in and around the stadium, or at Magic Rock, that would be ideal. But I think there are some issues around pouring rights, and Heineken have got them. So, pints of John Smith's it might be. But I think if it's going to be a success, I think they might just need to deviate a bit further away from Foster's and John Smith's, because I ain't drinking that piss.
Getting ground. It's I've missed it. After all we said tonight, it's been a downbeat podcast. I just can't wait to get back in. I'm so excited to click through that turnstile again. And
I fancy an away day more than a home game. I genuinely do. I fancy an away. I was saying to Pause earlier, I quite fancy an away game and seeing Dale Marsden, giving him some jip and
the new daddy, the new dad.
Yeah. Congrats, Dale. I don't think he listens anymore, but congrats anyway. So, the only other thing I've got really on the agenda was that, fair play to Mark Devlin for doing that Facebook interview. Well done to Phil and Mark. Good stuff. The Daily Mail report: Financial Armageddon, 10 sides. Big headline. Across the Daily Mail: Financial Armageddon. 10 sides were given a temporary transfer embargo due to the government and a penalty fine. Is this not a bit of a piss take from the EFL fining? When the government guidelines stipulated that all companies, including football clubs, could extend the deadline by 3 months for company accounts, and 10 clubs have taken that, and then the EFL have gone, nah.
Do you know who else didn't file their accounts, Matt? EFL.
EFL. There you go. Fantastic.
They're clubs for doing something that they have not done, and it's absolutely a load of guff what Daily Mail have printed, because it makes absolutely no difference. The only reason why we've had the transfer embargo is because the EFL didn't update their rules to match what's been put in government.
And apparently this is quite a frequent occurrence as well, that people are putting temporary embargoes with the missed payments and all sorts. So it was pretty much sensationalized when it was all a bit of nothing, really.
It was interesting that Luton put just to cut you off there, Matt, that Luton actually put an article on their website to basically explain. I don't think
Coventry,
and I think Coventry did as well, because that stupid headline could, what Town fans are like anyway with money situation and all that. That could kick off quite a lot of stuff, and it's interesting that Town, unless it comes in the monthly update, to suggest just to explain what that is, because you read that headline and you start to panic, don't you?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, Rick Parry's been a bit of a class A phallus throughout this pandemic as well, with his, the way he wanted to cozy up to the Premier League and give them full control of, who does what. I don't think he's fit for purpose for the job, in all honesty. But we'll see where he goes from that. That's about all I have on this agenda. Kosi, you're dying to say something.
Frank Worthington,
of course, yeah.
Usually sad. Lost for Huddersfield Town, and what a character he was. I mean,
let's talk about Frank and some of the best memories. Derek Hawksworth as well has also sadly passed away. Derek played for Huddersfield, I think, in the 1940s, and also Sheffield United, and so condolences to his family. But Frank Worthington is one that I think we all remember more because he was more visible around the club. I'll go first, Cos. Sorry, on this one, and I remember as a kid watching the Final Whistle video, and it was all as like a 12, what was it, sort of 13 maybe, as a 13-year-old watching that, all the 20s and 30s and 40s stuff was good, but it got really cool when it was Frank Worthington narrating it, and he was brilliant on this video, and he's talking about all the good times in the 70s. You see this for the first time, you see proper footage on that video. And Frank's, a complete star with, Jimmy Lawson, Jimmy Nicholson, Trevor Cherry, what a sight, Ian Greaves. And then you see them all at Johnny's nightclub and some of the stories. And then you look a bit more into Frank and, you look at some of the stories from how he failed his Liverpool medical. And the guy is just an absolute character who lived life to the max. And you could be forgiven for thinking, because of his, how he lived his life, he might be a bit of a cad, shall we say. But not at all. He was such a smashing bloke, in and around everywhere. And I always remember him coming on at half-time to take penalties at Leeds Road against Joe Corrigan. Joe Corrigan always used to save them. It was really funny. And Frank always used to have a bit of back and forth with the cowshed and stuff. And really happy memories. And my happiest memory of Frank Worthington is in that 2004 All-Stars game, where Jacko and Terry Yorath came back, and it was organised by, I think it was the HTSA maybe, and the funding to get enough money to try and see us through 24 hours before Ken Davey bought us. And And I remember a story, someone telling me about Frank Worthington, how I think he might have been late, but he came up in his car, got changed in his car, ran down through the ground, and then all of a sudden appeared at the side of the pitch and he did a couple of kick-ups in the car park, apparently, to warm up, ran to the pitch and kind of said, right, I'm ready, put me on. And the game was a little bit boring. It was all just kind of like nicey. You pass to me, you pass to you, and Darren Bullock and everything. And it was all quite nice, but there was no sort of like, it was just a nice little training exercise. Then Frank Worthington came on. I remember him doing some kick-ups, catching the ball on the back of his head and running the length of the field with it, crouched over on the back of his head. And Phil Senior, what an absolute whopper he is for having the audacity to say Frank's penalty in that game. Who does that, Phil? Come on. And but yeah, what an absolute Huddersfield Town legend. And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much with some stuff, but I'm talking to HTSA about some things about how we can maybe do a bit more for legends like Frank, and hopefully we can have something to talk about going forward of how Huddersfield Town looks at players of the past, and there's a project coming soon. So Frank Worthington, Huddersfield Town legend, rest in peace. Kosi,
iconic. I think Ian Greaves called him the working class George Best, which I think is perfect. Yeah. Big sideboards, obviously, just kind of before my time at Town, but it's where it all started, isn't it? And
you give that, Kosi. I reckon you were there, 69, sort of cowshed.
I haven't even had my job yet. I'm not that old, so anyway. But I think if you want to be a footballer for any Huddersfield Town fan, Frank Worthington be a man, wasn't it? Just like flair. He had the women, he had the drink, he had the gift of the gab. My friend's like she's a manager of all the social stuff at Leeds United, and Frank obviously played for there only a season, but she said that anytime Frank Worthington were like in doing these stuff like the pre-match stuff or the players used to go absolutely wild because he was such a character. And anytime, I just remember like my early kind of days following Town away, Frank just seemed to be doing half-time jaws because he played for that many clubs. Have you seen who he played for? You know, the 2 games at Guiseley. But all I ever heard was, "Oh, Frankie." I remember we were at Bolton in a game because obviously with a God there in their eyes, Frankie Worthington. And it was just like echoing around. And that goal that was just been replayed to death, and rightly so for Bolton. But it against Leicester when he flicked it over his head and like followed it in and arm up in the air, big sideboards down and that as well. And then there's that goal for us, I think, one against Arsenal, I think it was, where Cowshed going absolutely wild. And honestly, it's so sad. And,
you smile though when you hear those stories, don't you? Because I read something that I think Henry Winter did, and we were on about how Don Revie wanted to send him home from turning up for England because he turned up as the Rhinestone Cowboy. And you just think absolutely amazing, some of the stuff.
There's obviously players that have probably done more than Frank because he only started and obviously went on, and a lot of people said he should have got a lot more caps in England. But the thing I just remember, whenever, it doesn't matter whether you saw him on the pitch or on the halftime or old footage, you just have a smile on your face because the guy, I just love him. I love characters in life, not just football, and he was one of them. And such a huge miss. That when it were announced, I remember being on Sky Sports News, just kind of running background. They just come on the bottom in that black tick, and my heart just sunk because he, like Huddersfield Town, he was just iconic, man. And it's such a sad time. And condolences to all his family. It'd be nice if the club, I don't know, I know other clubs have got like museums, etc. But one day maybe if we take the stadium over, like sounds like we could have a little bit of because there's so much history that our club has. Let's hope that it's.
We should celebrate it more as well.
100%. But yeah, no, what a guy.
Do you guys want to echo anything?
I kind of completely share all your sentiments, really. It's kind of a sad day for the football club and the football community at large, really. You two probably know much more about kind of Frank Worthington's time in Huddersfield Town than what I do, but what I would say is it's quite evident watching the clips back and such that he was a real character, and I think football, kind of all sport, needs characters, really. There's probably not that many around anymore. And actually, kind of, you don't necessarily always need to be the best player, but kind of to be a really good character who someone can relate to and kind of puts a smile on people's faces is sometimes worth much more than what you can deliver on the football field. And I think Frank Worthington, from what I can see, kind of had that in abundance.
Yeah, I'm going to say, obviously, never saw him play or anything like that myself, but he was my dad's favourite player, and things that stick out in my mind. He always used to get when they've introduced players' names on back of the shirts, he always used to get Worthington 9. And as a kid, you're like, Dad, what are you getting down there for, you idiot? Stop embarrassing me. And he'd randomly do the old Frankie Worthington song in the middle of a pub. And, as a kid, you start cringing, but everyone would join in. And I think as someone who obviously never saw him play and stuff like that, it's nice to hear, I know you guys didn't see him play and stuff like that, but to all be able to chat about him and listen to stories. And you don't get characters like that these days, do you? Because it's all
they won't be allowed to be characters like that.
And stuff like that, which sometimes is you can't even say that the quality has increased because of that. Because players like Worthington and Georgie Best and stuff like that, they were great players. And say again, mate.
These guys used to get kicked and battered, mate. Not like protection now. When someone goes down, they get yellows and reds. They were booting them, and he still used to just skip past guys, man.
Yeah, those sort of players. I think there were a picture, weren't there, with Worthington on ball and George Best is just in background. My dad used to bang on about Georgie Best, and he was, you saw Town play Man United, Dad. But yeah, that must have been amazing. And then, we've seen that now as, my kids have seen that, and it's just amazing how the footballing circle just continually turns, isn't it? And, again, that sometimes just to try and end on a little bit of a positive, as bad and as desperate as Town seem to be now, in 20 years, or 3 to 5, if you believe the plan,
Let's hope so,
there. We could just be back there, couldn't we? And you get like we are now, you get it up and you get mad with it all, but you don't know what might happen in future, and we might be back there, and we might have to go down and down again before we even start to climb back up. But isn't it great that we have such a great history at Huddersfield Town? And I think Kosi's hit nail on the head there. If we do get somewhere at the stadium and the HTSA can have something where we can actually celebrate our success as a football club, because although a lot of people say Huddersfield Town, little small club and all that, look back
not at really, is it?
No, you look back at his trophies. We're up there. I think if you point them up, we're not too far down.
Look, in 2017, we saw what this club could be, and I think you hope to think that people do see what this football club could be. And you look back at 69, 70 when Frank was there, and again you can see what the football club was. And yeah, I don't see why. Like you say, things are very cyclical, but I think one thing's for sure. I'm not sure we're going to see another Frank Worthington again, but I think anybody half that will do for me.
If we do have a museum, I want that Yorkshire Electricity Cup we won against Hull, mate. Pride of place.
Simon Trevitt lifting it or something.
Give it a little rub when you go in.
Didn't Dudley Scott win it, I can't remember now, but yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think that's it, guys, isn't it? So thank you very much to everybody who's watched online. Just on Frank Worthington as well. Martin Sykes wrote a really nice article on Frank as well. So have a check at HTFC reports for what Martin wrote, and HTSA released something on Frank as well. So check out the HTSA website. It's worth looking at. And thanks to the 35 that's still watching us online.
2-1 win Saturday. Danny Ward's winner.
Because he's called it now. So I was going to say, keep an eye out for the preview show, which should drop as well Thursday night, Friday morning time. So thanks for bearing with us. Sorry it was a little bit negative, but you can only smile so much. It's like that meme, isn't it? With the crying eyes behind the smiley face, after a 7-0 defeat, isn't it? So thanks for everyone for being patient with us and letting us moan and sulk tonight. So all the best, everyone, and hopefully here's to 3 points or 6 points next week. It's another double game week, isn't it? Because Bournemouth. So we'll be back after the Bournemouth game live with live
Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday? Oh yeah, you've moved it, haven't you? Because you're on some cricket scoring course, aren't you?
Yeah, cricket season starts tomorrow. Snowing's
that might come in handy.
Next Wednesday.
Might come in handy against Bournemouth.
Billy,
you imagine if he gets 3. Anyway, thanks everyone, and we'll catch you next week. And Kosi wants to sing us out.
Billy.
When I start to sing, they say that I'm the king. But there's a guy I used to know whose hips had much more swing. He played for Leicester City. He weren't exactly pretty. Oh, bless my soul, Frank Worthington. Who needs rock and roll when you got ball control? stockings, but he didn't have sideburns quite like Frank's. Who needs cars and cash when you got a big mustache? Oh, bless my soul, Frank Worthington, swinging Frank. Sharp as Gary Lineker, tough like Gordon Banks. Keith, well, had great stockings, but he didn't have sideburns quite like Frank's. Well, he played for Leicester City, and he weren't exactly pretty. Oh, bless my soul, Frank Worthington.